Well, an anti-capitalist Canadian cafe that prided itself, with a pay-what-you-can business model was supposed to close at the end of the month, blaming a lack of generational wealth, seed capital from ethically bankrupt sources. However, it's now staying open. The Toronto shop, named The Anarchist, says thanks to a huge influx of support and a very generous donation of publicity and attention from the Christian conservatives of Texas and Florida, The Anarchist will continue to operate after May 30th. So let's welcome in Michael Charbon. He's the host of the Charbon Report. Thank you so much for being here again. Michael, tell us about this anti-capitalist coffee shop now staying open. This is after the New York Post said last week that it was going to close after 1 year in business. Why all the support now? Why are people stepping up and donating and making this stay open?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Here we are, Toronto, Canada, home of Tim Hortons and the double-double. The anti-capitalists, they were saying that they only had something that was working because it's a subversive alternative to the usual workers producing wealth for their parasitic employers. The premise didn't work. They were losing money. I mean, he was going to go bankrupt because he had no capital. And people were saying that if the place had to close, then guess what he was going to do? He was going to go on welfare paid by the capitalist taxpayers. It seems that there was someone who had a feeling for him. He's the sole proprietor. He owns the place. And the premise of saying that they were giving away what you can pay only reflected to black coffee, not to the other elements. So I think this is just a situation where someone sees the guy out there trying to promote this thing to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It doesn't make economic sense. He can't make a living. So once again, someone from the left has to parachute in to pay enough money to keep him going. It's not a realistic premise, but someone trying to keep that message going because, you know, the philosophy of being anti-capitalist, I guess, is in vogue with the rest of the wokeness that's going around today.
Right. And the cafe is a pay-what-you-can run operation. Plus, anyone can use the bathroom and hang out without buying anything. Locals say that the price for a cup of coffee there is very high. Why would someone want to donate and fund this anti-capitalist business, knowing that could possibly close once those no donations that just came in, they run out?
It's all about, John, it's all about philosophy. I mean, anti-capitalist, you look at what's happening now in society, the way things are going, where everybody's talking about everybody has to be equal, everybody gets a participation badge. It's not about winning, it's about playing. And so that whole thing about everybody is absolutely equal is not what America's success was built on. America's success was built on ingenuity, hard work, and capitalism. When the owner of a business can't afford to pay his employees, it's not the bank who says, hey, oh, you poor guy, we're going to give you a break. No, he takes the risk to do that. He mortgages his house to make his payroll. So I guess this is someone that still feels that anti-capitalists' feelings is something that we should promote, when in actuality, it's false. It doesn't work. The economics of it just prove that it doesn't work, John.
Let's talk about Fox News because it could possibly be banned in Canada on their cable packages there. The CRTC, the Canadian Radio, Television Communications Commission, is mulling over whether or not Fox News should be gone from its list of stations. Eagle Canada says that the program's now former host, Tucker Carlson, made false and horrifying claims about individuals who are two-spirit, transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming. But Tucker isn't there anymore, so why would they ban Fox News in Canada?
So there's a group called Eagle Canada. They put forth a submission that they wanted people to have a public submission to add why they believe that Fox News should be taken off. Eagle represents that Fox programming violates the broadcast standards and has no place to be on Canadian television because it produces malicious propaganda against marginalized groups. I mean, if you can believe that. Tucker made it clear that the shooter in the Tennessee assassinations, there was 3 adults and 3 kids who were shot in a Christian elementary covenant school, that the shooter was trans. And because the shooter was trans, it was an anomaly. So it was something that was very, very unique. And the reason why, if you look at the Rockefeller Institute, which is a public policy think tank, they did a study from 1966 on to present day of the 402 mass shootings. 95.7% were males. So a trans shooter is an anomaly and was something that Tucker was reporting and suggesting. I mean, he was on mental altering drugs, and he was also on certain drugs to facilitate his change. Did they have an effect on that? There was also a manifesto, which we have yet not to hear, and we never got a toxicology report. So basically, the Eagle Group is trying to make motion to try and get Fox taken off. And where this becomes a very important point is if you look in Canadian cable television, Fox and NEWSMAX, for instance, are not generally on the dial. If you have a basic cable subscription in Canada, you get CNN. So conservative television is in jeopardy. Does that mean if they're going to try and take Fox off, they're going to try and stop NEWSMAX? I mean, particularly after Tucker left, you saw how NEWSMAX's viewership has increased. So this is a pretty serious situation, John.
Yeah, there really isn't a lot of conservative television in Canada. Last question here. Alberta, they've been in the news, the province there, wanting to separate from the rest of Canada and become maybe the 51st state with the U.S. Is there any legitimacy to this? I know that there's been separatist talk before with Quebec, but is this actually something that could be done? Would Alberta separate from the rest of Canada? Obviously, they have a lot of oil there and GDP for the entire country. Do you see this, Michael, even being discussed, or is this just thrown out there?
John, if you look at politics west of Ontario, it's all conservative. Right. The Liberals hold quite a hold in Ontario and some parts of Quebec. And you're correct, John. Quebec was the last one to suggest that they were going to separate. You know, when you're going through negotiations, I mean, we can look at the debt ceiling now that's going on. You always have to be able to put a little bit of a jab in there. I don't think it's a realistic situation. I will say that there are many people in the West who are upset the way Ottawa and Trudeau is conducting the business of Canada and want to make some difference in their influence in the governance of Canada. So you throw a little bomb in there, and when the smoke all clears, everybody kind of holds hands and kind of said, well, we might work this out again. But I think this is just a political rabble-rousing. But it still brings up a legitimate point. If the West is uncomfortable, if you're a Liberal and there's an election coming up, you best take care of your friends west of Ontario because, as you said, and rightly so, John, there's lots of oil and minerals, and they have a huge contribution to Canada's GDP. So, yeah. John, you're correct in your assumption, but no, I don't think it's a realistic situation.
Yeah, that East-West rivalry in Canada still continues there. Michael Charbon, thank you so much for being here. He's the host of the Charbon Report. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, thanks.